All good things come to an end. All bad things, too. The Acolyte is finally over, and it was... well, it was. The last 7 weeks had been really difficult. Beyond the heat wave, beyond the holiday traffic, beyond all the things going on around me, The Acolyte has been the biggest disappointment of my pop culture life. The once great Star Wars has devolved into some angry TV show that feels more like a therapy session for the creator than it does a vital part of a bigger story. The characters were a disappointment. The action was a disappointment. The writing was an even bigger disappointment. This show was beyond disappointing. It was a waste of time. It's a bigger time drain than this introduction where I'm trying to avoid talking about the show. Well, let's put on our big boy pants and talk about this final episode of The Acolyte. Oh, and because I'm a masochist, or because I really care about you, we'll have a final season recap as well this Saturday, so don't miss out. But before we get into this dumpster fire, today's video is brought to you by me, Jeff Hicks, and my graphic novel Stealing Solo, the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs, and yes, it's even better than The Acolyte. Stealing Solo asks the greatest what-if question of all time. What if a group of disgruntled Star Wars fans kidnap Harrison Ford and force him to remake Star Wars in their basement? That, and a whole lot more, is answered in Stealing Solo, a Captain's Parody. Stealing Solo has been called Laugh Out Loud Funny and the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs, and it's available now for a limited time only. Go to StealingSolo.com, which is powered by Shopify, so you get the reward-winning safety and security, and get yourselves a copy today. Once we sell through this limited backstock, I'm going back to the drawing board to bring you the sequel, which parodies Luke Skywalker's fall from grace, and finally the closing chapter, which I can't wait to get to, Frankenfisher, the Bride of Solo. And yes, it's exactly what you think it is. So folks, the only way to get that is go to StealingSolo.com right now, get yourselves a copy, and enjoy the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs. The final episode of The Acolyte starts out with Kamir and Osha. Osha has put on the helmet worn by Kamir. All of a sudden, we see a force interaction between the two, and it looks like Kamir has been mind-controlled, just like the witches have. Who's using this dark force? Who's using this dark power? Is it Osha? Is it someone else? Keep watching, you'll be disappointed. Kamir tells Osha that the future is what she saw. This is supposed to parallel Luke and Yoda on Dagobah, but that's not really the case here. It just comes off as stupid and laughable. We then find out that May wants to go to save her sister and or Saul, and Kamir is the only one that can take her there, so they decide to go together. We then cut back to the ship with May. May had been restrained by Saul a few episodes ago, and she was still on that table. To escape, May uses the little pit droid she had. Now, this right here drew a huge question from me. How can the Jedi, who have superpowers, not understand what's going on around them, and how can they be duped and deceived? Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, they could sense people's emotions, they knew what was coming before it happened, but somehow, for this show, all the Jedi are inept. Our inept Jedi gets shocked by May, and she escapes. She doesn't get into an escape pod, she gets into an escape ship, and Saul chases her. Now this is where the budget of the show comes into play. He chases her through an asteroid field, and visually it looks pretty good, but it's kind of a waste of time. Also, Saul is nearing May. He's about to take her down, but all of a sudden, the gopher disables the ship, so Saul doesn't shoot May. Why is the gopher trying to save the girl? He thought she was evil, he was the one that exposed her, or at least tried to, but why now? This show has a morality problem, among many other things. We then see May crash land on the planet. It cuts back to Coruscant afterwards. We see a senator talk to Vernestra at the Jedi Temple. He asks her about a murder investigation, but she accidentally lets it slip that they're talking about multiple murders, all Jedi. The senator then calls the Jedi a cult. They're a massive power, and they're dangerous, and they need to be stopped. This is a problem I have, because this is far too much. It's too on the nose. The deconstruction of the Jedi is just too thick, and I don't like it. We then cut back to Kamir, who asks Osha if she would ever train with him. She flatly says no. But then as they leave, we see in the distance a man in a cave, but it's not really a man, but a creature. That creature is Darth Plagueis. Yeah, it doesn't call him Darth Plagueis, but it's the exact same design as the toy I had all those years ago. We then cut back to Coruscant, where we learn that Vernestra is going to go to Brendok to intercept Saul and save him. Back on Brendok, we see Saul walking through the remnants of the Witch Coven. We also see May there too, as she looks at the remnants of her home. While May and Saul are inside of the base, Osha and Kamir arrive. Osha activates the elevator, but Kamir disappears in the Force. We're then treated to a lightsaber duel between Saul and Kamir. At first, it starts out incredibly intense, but then a little bit of wire foo appears, and the show becomes laughable at best. We then cut to the sisters who have found each other in their former home. Osha then tells May that she quit being a Jedi over the guilt she felt and the negative emotion. She then says that her negative emotions all come from Sol. Those are the reasons she has them. They then fight in a very cringy martial arts duel, with a kip-up that makes you roll your eyes even harder. Hard enough, in fact, to see the inside of your head. We then see Sol and Kamir finish out the fight. Admittedly, it's pretty cool. We see Sol destroy the lightsaber, and then May comes out of nowhere to save Kamir's life and takes Sol's lightsaber from him. She throws it on the ground and breaks it somehow. Now, we've seen lightsabers break in Star Wars before, but it's usually when a giant metal droid cuts it in half. This is a little different. I guess lightsabers of the High Republic era aren't crash-tested, or mother-approved. We then see May and Sol talking, where she then convinces Sol to admit that he murdered their mother. Osha, who's in the background, hears this and force chokes Sol, killing him. We then see Osha with the lightsaber in her hand, grip it, bleed into the lightsaber, and then that turns the lightsaber blade red. Meanwhile, Vernestra and her Jedi crew land on the planet. She can sense Kamir. We then see the twins escaping. As they climb down the pit, we learn how May survived all those years ago. After the explosion, she was just sucked into an exhaust port and magically survived. The Jedi are on their tail. Vernestra tells the rest of the Jedi to go on and search looking for the girls, as she deals with Sol's body. We then cut to the girls at the end of the shaft, where they're in front of a tree crying together. It's the Weeping Willow from earlier in the series. We then see Kamir appear. He tells them that if he can find them, the Jedi can find them too. Osha then agrees to go with Kamir to save May's life. To protect her, Kamir is going to wipe May's mind. That way, when the Jedi arrest her, they won't have any information and they'll have to let her go. It's not like she'll be held accountable for her crimes or anything like that. Not in today's political landscape. The sisters cry and they hug. They try to recite the twins' poem, but then we learn that May doesn't know it anymore. Her mind has been wiped. If these characters were likable, the audience would care. May is then arrested and taken back to Coruscant. There she talks to Vernestra. She explains what happens. Vernestra learns that May only remembers the first 8 years of her life, and mentally she's a child again. Vernestra then meets with the Republic Senate, and she tells them of what happened. She lies to them. She tells them what happened, and how Sol killed all the other Jedi to cover it up. 16 years later, for some reason, they also say that they're going to move forward quickly and not worry about this. We then cut away to Osha and Kamir. She is now in love with Kamir and they are evil together, holding hands overlooking a sunset. We cut back one more time to Coruscant where we see Vernestra, the green lesbian Jedi, talk to Master Yoda, who is either involved with all of this or she's lying to Yoda. The show ends there. The finale of this series is terrible. It attempts to tie up all those loose ends by simply pulling the rug out from underneath audiences to confuse them even more. Headband and company think that this will get them a second season. It won't. It'll get people to roll their eyes and watch something else. My biggest complaint with the finale of The Acolyte is the jilted morality of the show. We know the old adage, 2 wrongs don't make a right. This show says that it does. Osha's actions aren't justifiable as righteous. The show ends with a really, really bad message. How can Vernestra do what she did to Sol? She calls him a friend and says he's a generous and kind man, but then she pins all of May's murders on him. Why? Is that supposed to be the real conspiracy? The lesbian space witches aren't good. We see their actions on the night of their death. They attack first. Yes, the Jedi did intrude, but the mother then turned into a sentient cloud and tried to attack him. That wasn't murder, that was self-defense, and he should have said so. The series should have not shown the actions of the space witches in the 7th episode. Had they left what happened open to interpretation, it would have made audiences think that Sol's actions were reprehensible. Instead, they show us Sol protecting himself, the other Jedi protecting each other, and the child burning down the compound herself. Why are the Jedi bad here? They have too much power? What's the obsession with these people writing a story about taking down a man with power because he's powerful? They even say what a good person Sol was, yet he's labeled as a traitor and a murderer. What's the message here? Why is Vernestra protecting the girls? She never met May, so why does she care? It's like Leia with Rey. Why is she hugging her over Chewbacca? It's dumb. Speaking of dumb, it's incredibly stupid that the Senate and the other Jedi believe Sol was responsible. There were witnesses to May's crimes. There are other Jedi who knew where Sol was during the time of those deaths. They rush everything trying to get a conviction and they move on quickly. They don't want people putting too much thought into this, as well as the story itself. The action scenes this week are laughable. The wire work as well as the bicycle kick were so badly done it took me out of the story. There's no reason a show that costs $180 million should make me laugh at how cheesy it is. This isn't Crouching Tiger, Hidden Jedi, it's more like Flying Jedi hokey bullshit. This wasn't a stylistic choice. This was inept people trying to blend Star Wars with martial arts, a murder mystery, a therapy session about Leslie Headland's guilt, and I guess hocus pocus. Did it work? You tell me. The callbacks and nods to older Star Wars was pointless. Was Yoda behind this? Is Yoda secretly evil? Is Yoda that stupid? They think the audience is. How can the Jedi, who can sense people, their emotion, their internal conflicts, and more, not know when they're being lied to? How can they be surprised as often as they are in this show? This show has to depower the Jedi senses so they can write them into really stupid scenarios and make May and Osha look like victims. The only victim here is the fans of Star Wars. All people in the press are talking about are the cameos. If the story is crap, then who cares? These people are so focused on fan theories in their own headcanon that they intentionally overlook the shortcomings of this series. I won't. Yoda and Darth Plagueis and Ki-Adi-Mundi aren't getting me to open my wallet. I'm not going to roll over and just ignore the shortcomings because the stupid Disney Star Wars fans are geeking out. Those people are too dumb to insult any further. This isn't childhood nostalgia blinding them. This is brand loyalty. Speaking of childhood, Leslie Headland, keep yours out of Star Wars. May and Osha was the dumbest Star Wars plot twist, plot point, pointless plot I've ever seen. These characters do not have the audience's sympathy. We watched May murder and we watched Osha kill and we're supposed to be sympathetic towards them? How? Why? What? As in, what the hell did I just watch? This is why fans hate modern Star Wars. Bad characters. It's nothing deeper than that. Rey was a bad character. Reva was a bad character. And these twins are also bad characters. Other bad characters include Snoke, Poe Dameron, Hux, and pretty much everyone in Star Wars save for the Mandalorian and a few other characters. Hell, I have no qualms with Baby Yoda, but I couldn't stand the cutesy droid, the gopher, the one British white Jedi. They all sucked. If you have characters that the audience hates, you cannot write them into compelling scenarios, no matter how hard they try. That's the case with the Acolyte. There may be some interesting ideas, but the execution was bad, and the show is full of pointless things. The Acolyte comes off as a waste of time more than anything else. The episodes made me laugh. The wire fu, the writing, the bad acting, it was all hilarious. That's how I felt watching this show. I wasn't angry. That anger died a long time ago. This was hilariously bad and incredibly stupid. The whole series was dumb, and I'll be back next time with a full overview of the series and a post-mortem report for Star Wars. Stick a fork in it, Jim. It's dead. So folks, what did you think? I'll tell you this, don't believe the hype. Don't fall for the trap. Don't get hyped up for Yoda. They show him from the back for about 3 seconds. If you're a diehard Yoda enthusiast, awesome, but don't take the bait. I like Han Solo more than you like Yoda, and I'm not rushing out to buy Solo a Star Wars story on 4K because Han Solo's in it. No, sometimes you gotta draw a line, and that line's been drawn with me at Star Wars for a long time. I go into the stores to make the toy videos. Am I buying Star Wars toys? No, I'm passing up good-looking figures because I hate what Disney represents. I don't even think I'm going to do Star Wars Celebration Japan anymore. That's how serious I am about this shit. I hated this show. So instead of spending money, spending time, spending energy, anything to help support Star Wars, I'm done. I'm going to make fun of it forever, and that's about it. So folks, because of Mark Hamill's recent comments on social media, I'm going to make Stealing Solo 2 my next project. I'm already in production on it. The story had already been kind of written, so we're just going to move forward. But be on the lookout for that by the end of this year. So I'm going to go deeper into production because it needs to be said. He needs to be made fun of. And another Stealing Solo, well, you guys need something to laugh at as well. So folks, thank you for watching. I'll be back next time with more. If you're hungry for more content, check out our other videos, hit subscribe, check us out on Patreon, and make sure you watch us live on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays for Good Morning Pop Culture. And join us Tuesdays and Thursdays at night for the High Council and the WCBS podcast, the granddaddy of all the channel's content. Folks, I'm gonna go see Twisters tonight, so I gotta get ready for that. Expect the review in the morning, and tomorrow's podcast will be about disaster films and all the other disastrous things going on in the world of entertainment. I'll be back next time with more, but in the meantime, folks, be smart, be safe, be cool, but always be excellent to each other.